The night was quiet, too quiet. The village of Bhairavpur lay in the shadow of an old, forgotten palace that had been abandoned for years. Its crumbling walls, once elegant, were now draped in overgrowth. It was said that whoever entered the palace never came back the same. But tonight, it wasn't the palace that was on the mind of the villagers. It was the bride. Her name was Mahar, a young woman whose beauty was unmatched. Her wedding day had been a grand affair, a celebration that would be remembered for generations. Her family, wealthy and influential, had arranged her marriage to a man of equal stature, Arif. Everything was perfect. The guests were in awe, the laughter was infectious, and the joy seemed endless. Wedding ceremony had taken place in the palace, as it had been tradition for generations. The grand hall, decorated in gold and white, sparkled under the candlelight. But as the final vows were exchanged, something strange happened. The air grew cold, and an unnatural darkness seemed to hover over the bride and groom. The guests didn't notice, lost in the excitement, but Mahar felt it. A presence, lurking, watching, waiting. The moment she said her vows, the chandelier above them flickered violently, casting shadows on the walls. Mahar's heart pounded in her chest as she turned to look at Arif. His eyes were blank, devoid of any warmth. He seemed distant, lost in some trance she couldn't understand. But before she could question him, the lights went out entirely. Chaos ensued. Guests screamed, servants rushed around in panic, and the air grew thick with a sense of dread. When the lights finally flickered back on, Arif was gone. The guests searched frantically, but there was no sign of him anywhere. For weeks, the mystery of his disappearance haunted the village. Rumors spread that the palace was cursed, that a dark force lived within its walls, and that Mahar had been marked by it. But despite all the whispers, the villagers never spoke of what had happened. In the dark, they could only pray that the curse would not touch them. Months passed, and the wedding day became a distant memory. But Mahar was not the same. She was quieter now, her once radiant smile replaced by a hollow expression. She no longer laughed, no longer felt joy. Her eyes, once full of life, now seemed to carry the weight of a terrible secret. The villagers avoided her, not out of fear, but out of sympathy. They could see that she was slowly fading away. One night, under the cover of darkness, a voice echoed through the village, a chilling, haunting voice that called Mahar's name, drawing her toward the palace. It was a voice she knew all too well. Arif. But it wasn't his voice anymore. It was twisted, distorted, full of malice, driven by an unknown force. Mahar made her way to the palace, the place where her life had changed forever. The gates creaked open as she stepped inside, the darkness swallowing her whole. The air inside was thick with the scent of decay, and the floors creaked under her weight. She walked through the hall, each step echoing louder in the silence. The chandelier that had once illuminated the room now lay shattered on the floor, its remnants scattered like broken dreams. She moved deeper into the palace, guided only by the sound of Arif's voice. It was soft at first, a whisper carried by the wind, but it soon grew louder, more insistent. She followed the sound until she reached the old bridal chamber, the room where she had once prepared for her wedding night. The door creaked open, revealing a scene frozen in time. The room was still decorated with wedding flowers, but they were wilted now, their petals blackened with age. The mirror on the wall reflected a figure Mudge, standing alone in the room, but there was something off about her reflection. Her face was twisted in agony, her eyes filled with terror. Arif stood in the corner, his once handsome face now contorted and decayed. His skin was pale, stretched tight over his bones, and his eyes were hollow, empty voids. He smiled at her, a cruel, mocking smile, before he spoke in that twisted voice. "You shouldn't have come back, May." Her heart raced. "What happened to you? Where have you been? Why are you doing this?" Arif's smile faded, and a sinister laugh filled the room. "I was never meant to be with you. You were chosen, Mayha, chosen to be a part of something far greater than you can understand." Mayha stepped back, her breath quickening. "What do you mean? What are you talking about?" Arif reached out, his fingers long and bony. "The palace has claimed me, Mayha. It has claimed my soul, and now it wants yours." Before she could react, the room began to spin. The walls warped and shifted, the air growing colder with each passing second. Mayha's vision blurred as she tried to hold on to her sanity, but it was no use. The darkness enveloped her, pulling her into its depths. When the villagers found her the next morning, she was standing at the gates of the palace,